on the moon that he claims was presided over by VIPs, including ex-Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld.
And then there's the curious case of Gary McKinnon, the British computer hacker who was hauled up on serious criminal charges by the US government for hacking into the US government and military computer networks. As of early 2010, McKinnon was facing 70 years in prison for hacking into US Space Command computers, where he alleges to have seen computer files with lists of non-terrestrial officers' names and records of fleet-to-fleet transfers containing names of ships that he says are not US Navy ships. What he saw caused him to believe that the US military has a secret space fleet, and that the ships' names that he viewed belonged to that secret space fleet. Be that as it may, whatever it was that he saw caused the US government to go to unusual lengths to try to extradite Gary McKinnon to the US and criminally prosecute and imprison him for the rest of his natural life. Judging by the extreme reaction of the US government to what would seem to be an otherwise comparatively minor hacking incident, maybe it really does have a secret space fleet. Maybe that's why it went after Gary McKinnon so aggressively. Those are current stories about Mars and the secret space program. Now back to Bill Cooper and his story.
A public charade of antagonism between the Soviet Union and the United States has been maintained over all these years in order to fund projects in the name of national defense, when in fact we are the closest allies. At some point, President Kennedy discovered portions of the truth concerning the drugs and the aliens. He issued an ultimatum in 1963 to MJ-12. President Kennedy assured them that if they did not clean up the drug problem, he would. He informed MJ-12 that he intended to reveal the presence of aliens to the American people within the following year and ordered a plan developed to implement his decision. President Kennedy was not a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and knew nothing of Alternative 2 or Alternative 3. Internationally, the operations were supervised by MJ-12 and in the Soviet Union by its sister organization. President Kennedy's decision struck fear into the hearts of those in charge. His assassination was ordered by the Policy Committee, and the order was carried out by agents of MJ-12 in Dallas.
Recently, a lot of books are coming out on the Kennedy assassination, and they've got a really clear picture of who did it and who conspired to have these people do it. Refer to a brilliant researcher that's coming out on the subject called, his name is Ole Dammegard, and he's from Sweden, and we'll put a link to his analysis of the Kennedy assassination on Notes for Podcast 113. Back to the text. During the era of the United States' initial space exploration and the moon landing, every launch was accompanied by an alien craft. A moon base dubbed Luna was sighted and filmed by the Apollo astronauts. Domes, spires, tall round structures which look like silos, huge T-shaped mining vehicles which left stitch-like tracks in the lunar surface, and extremely large as well as small alien craft appear in the photograph. It is a joint United States, Russia, and alien base. The space program is a farce, and an unbelievable waste of money. Alternative 3 is a reality and is not at all science fiction. Most of the Apollo astronauts were severely shaken by this experience, and their lives and subsequent statements reflect the depth of the revelation and the effect of the muzzle order which followed. They were ordered to remain silent or suffer extreme penalty, death, which was termed an expediency. Yes, one astronaut actually did talk to the British producers of the TV expose Alternative 3, confirming many of the allegations.
In the book Alternative 3, the pseudonym Bob Groden was used in place of the astronaut's identity. It was also stated that he committed suicide in 1978. This cannot be validated by any source, and I believe that severe so-called facts in the book are really disinformation. I firmly believe that this disinformation is a result of pressure put upon the authors and is meant to nullify the effect upon the populace of the British TV expose Alternative 3. The headquarters of the international conspiracy is in Geneva, Switzerland. The ruling body is made up of representatives of the governments involved, as well as the executive members of the Bilderbergers. Meetings are held by policy committee when necessary on a nuclear submarine beneath the polar ice cap.
That's kind of an extreme measure.
The secrecy is such that this was the only method which would ensure that the meetings would not be bugged. I can say that the book is at least 70% true from my own knowledge and the knowledge of my sources. I believe that the disinformation was an attempt to compromise the British TV expose with information which could be proven false, just as the Eisenhower briefing document was released here in the United States under the contingency plan Majestic 12, and which can also be proven false.
Since our interaction with aliens began, we've come into possession of technology beyond our wildest dreams. A craft named Aurora exists at Area 51, which makes regular trips into space. It is a one-stage ship called a TAV, Trans-Atmospheric Vehicle, and it can take off from the ground using a 7-mile runway, go into high orbit, return on its own power, and land on the same runway. We currently have and fly atomic-powered alien craft at Area S4 in Nevada. Our pilots have made interplanetary voyages in these crafts and have been to the Moon, Mars, and other planets aboard these craft. We have been lied to about the true nature of the Moon, the planet Mars and Venus, and the real state of technology that we possess today at this very moment. Now remember, this very moment was, May 23rd, 1989. There are areas on the Moon where plant life grows and even changes colors with the seasons. This seasonal effect is because the Moon does not, as claimed, always present exactly the same side to the Earth and the Sun. There is an area that wobbles in and out of darkness on a seasonal basis, and it's near this area that the plant life grows. The Moon does have a few man-made lakes and ponds upon its surface, and clouds have been observed and filmed in its atmosphere. It possesses a gravitational field, and man can walk upon its surface without a spacesuit, breathing from an oxygen bottle after undergoing decompression, the same as any deep-sea diver. I have seen the photographs, and some of them were actually published in a book entitled We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon by Fred Steckling.
In 1969, a confrontation broke out between the human scientists and the aliens at the Dulce Underground Lab. The aliens took many of our scientists hostage. Delta forces were sent in to free them, but they were no match against the alien weapons. 66 of our people were killed during this action. As a result, we withdrew from all joint projects for at least 2 years. A reconciliation eventually took place, and once again we began to interact. Today the alliance continues.
Now, I haven't delved as deeply as I'm going to on this Dulce base and the Dulce War, but supposedly, according to some accounts, it wasn't just humans against the aliens. Some of the aliens took the side of the humans in protest of what was going on in the Dulce base, which is rumored to be an interbreeding facility where they're creating hybrid humans. There is a guy who survived the Dulce War. His name's Captain Mark Richards of the U.S. Space Command. And after the war, he was framed for murder, and he was put in prison for the rest of his life. And people are allowed to visit him and talk to him, but they're not allowed to take notes on what he says, film what he says, record what he says in any way. It just has to be what you can remember him saying. I think that's how they succeeded in shutting up Captain Mark Richards about the Dulce base, which is still highly classified dark ops thing.
Continuing from Bill's text, I cannot even begin to outline the entire financial empire controlled by the CIA, the NSA, and the Council on Foreign Relations that controls and launders money from drugs and other intelligence community proprietary ventures. But I can tell you the little that I do know. The amount of money is beyond anything you can imagine and is hidden in vast networks of banks and holding companies. A contingency plan was formulated by MJ-12 to throw everyone off the trail should they come close to the truth. The plan was known as Majestic 12. It was implemented with the release by Moore, Shandera, and Friedman of the purported genuine Eisenhower briefing document. The document is a fraud. The plan has so far thrown the entire research community off the trail for several years and has resulted in the wasted expenditure of money looking for information which does not exist. It resulted in the total waste of a grant given by the Fund for UFO Research of $16,000, which was given to Stanton Friedman to research the information. Many thousands of man-hours have gone into looking for a red herring. If you doubt the secret government's ability to run you through the rose garden, you had better think again. Another contingency plan is in force and is working upon you today. Now remember, this was penned in 1989, so who knows. It is the plan to prepare the public for eventual confrontation with an alien race. The public is being bombarded with movies, radio, advertising, and TV depicting almost every aspect of the true nature of the alien presence. This includes the good and the bad. Look around and pay attention. The aliens are planning to make their presence known, and the government is preparing you for it, so there will be no panic. The worst contingency plan has also been implemented and is at work right now. For many years now, they have been importing drugs and selling them to the people, and mainly the poor and the minorities. Social welfare programs were put into place to create a dependent, non-working element of our society. They then began to remove the social welfare programs in order to develop a large criminal class that did not exist in the early 50s and early 60s. They encouraged the manufacture and importation of deadly military firearms for the criminal element to use. This was intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Incidents were to be staged to speed up the process. By using drugs and hypnosis in a process called Orion, on mental